G'day guys, welcome to Footy Rants. I'm Benny Matthews. Look, it's been a bit of a hiatus for me. Haven't ripped a podcast, I think, since about week 2 of the finals. So sort of bowed out in the last couple of games. Obviously, my Cowboys made it to the grand final. A scoreline of 34-6, one that I won't ever forget. I think more so than the 17-16 scoreline of when we won in 2015. But anyway, that's 2017 done and dusted. And if you're a rugby league fan like me, undoubtedly you're excited to get your last little fix for the year. It's an opportunity to see Cooper Cronk and Cameron Smith and Billy Slater all play again for one last little period of time. And I don't really want to waste too much time. I won't go into too much depth from game to game. I'll more look to sink my teeth in a review once we sort of see every team and get an opportunity, especially with some of these second tier nations. It's sort of hard to make comment on certain players and the reputations that they bring, just because there's such a varied level of talent across those sides as well. So we'll flick across to the team list. So tonight we've got Australia versus England kicking off down in Melbourne. Look, it's a very strong Australian outfit. Is it the strongest that we could put forward? Well, no, I don't believe so. Particularly in the forwards, we see there in the front row, Aaron Woods, David Klemmer are the starting front row. Regan Campbell-Gillard's been named 18th man. Thinking back to, Fafita having stepped across to the Tongan side, does that then leave you wondering, well, was he one of those starting front rowers ahead of Klemmer, and perhaps Klemmer was meant to wear the 15 jersey and Jordan McLean in at 18th man? I would argue that even though Jordan McLean has participated in the last 2 grand finals, that Regan Campbell-Gillard had a better season than him. I sort of get sick and tired of this stigma that you need to pick players who know how to win these sort of games and these sort of tournaments, as opposed to what that word representative actually means. It should be based on form, and I think there's a few players, and I've got a couple in mind from a couple of other countries that I think have missed out because certain coaches haven't picked in that fashion. So anyway, just for those that aren't following along on YouTube or just listening to the audio, we've got Billy Slater, Dane Gagai, Will Chambers, Josh Dugan. Again, not sure how Josh Dugan wears the forward jersey for Australia. Valentine Holmes. Obviously, Gagai and Holmes sort of been picked off the back of their state of origin feats. Dane Gagai, player of the series. He was always going to be hard to leave out of this team. Michael Morgan and Cooper Cronk in the halves. JT's not partaking in this World Cup. He'll make that full recovery for the 2018 Cowboys campaign next year. As I alluded to earlier, Woods and Klemmer up front, Cameron Smith captain at 9, Cordner and Gillett in the halves, and Jake Trbojevic gets a start in the 13 jersey ahead of rival Josh Maguire, who'll come off the bench state to state. Wade Graham I love off the bench, just like he does for Cronulla, popping up on that edge. It's got that kick option. It'll be really interesting to see how they incorporate that, whether they sort of, it's interesting seeing how certain dynamics from certain players can tend to get reduced once you see them on this representative stage. And I really hope that you don't see Jake Trbojevic's offload sort of die down, and that they really look to try and utilise. Because if you look at his brother Tom, his play and Billy Slater's play, as far as offloads and pushing around the footy, they're not too dissimilar. And I'd really love to see Mal Meninga try and utilise Billy Slater in combination with Jake Trbojevic as much as possible. And then the last player that we see there making up the 17 for Australia is Tyson Frizzell, who had an absolute stellar year off the back of that massive Dragons forward pack, who were obviously strong in that first 7 to 8 rounds and then really died in the arse and missed out, and were basically the reason why the Cowboys got their opportunities to make the grand final. Again, as I alluded to earlier, I'll make no secret that there's a fair few players that are unbeknownst to me, even in this English lineup. A lot of the outside backs I'm not really aware of. Ryan Hall, we know, has been around for forever and a day. Those Australian-based English players, we've got Widdop at 6, Hodgson at 9, James Graham, who we all love, in the front row, Burgess in at second row, which is an interesting decision from Coach Wayne Bennett, Elliot Whitehead, who we've seen at Canberra. So I'm interested to see how that little combination familiarity with Josh Hodgson and Elliot Whitehead lines up, and Chris Hyington will come off the bench, as does Tom Burgess. So, a little bit of familiarity with a number of those names across the English side. I did get a chance to look at Luke Gale, the halfback. He played for the Castleford Tigers. Appears to be a really good support player. I mean, obviously you're taking these sort of results and attributes off the back of the competition that he's used to. We know that the English game is arguably a little bit faster than the Australian one, but not quite as physical. They're definitely not as ruck-based. They're not as technical in and around that play the ball as we are down here in Australia. So it'll be interesting to see how the forwards combat that. I guess that is the big luxury that Wayne Bennett does have at his disposal, is that, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 forwards that do play in the NRL. So, I think up front, Wayne Bennett will feel that they're a massive chance, because I don't feel that Aaron Woods and David Clemmer are our best possible starting front row opportunities. So they've just got to throw down the gauntlet. You can already tell sort of in the demeanour and the dialogue that the English are putting forward. It's almost like they've already accepted loss. They've simply said, they just want to come out here and play a strong game. It's not about the result. The World Cup is a long-term feature, and that's essentially what Wayne Bennett sort of echoed as well. And I'm not sure if that's the attitude that I'm adopting. I couldn't give a fuck if I'm playing Australia or USA. I'm going out there, and no doubt, once push comes to shove, those guys are going to fire up, and you're only hearing the voice of a few. And we've got to wonder, is that a certain sort of prompt that Wayne Bennett has sort of put forward to the media? It wouldn't be the first time that there's been ploys like that to play mind games with the Aussies, especially with the blown out alleged feud between himself and Coach Mal Meninga. So, I like the forward pack for the English. They've been given a 16.5 point start. So, I guess that mainly hinges on that Australian backline of Slater, Gagai, Chambers, Dugan, Holmes, Morgan and Cronk. Having Morgan and Cronk both playing the grand final in opposition regardless, as well as Cameron Smith, and Billy Slater, Will Chambers, the list goes on. So you've got guys that are in form and have played all the way through the season. So it's going to be an interesting clash. I can see why the dialogue for England would be, well, let's just see sort of how we go and put forward a strong display. And undoubtedly it's going to come down to the kick execution and how they incorporate their outside back plays. I think up front, at least early on, it'll be a nice even tussle, but it'll probably more come down to execution. That 16.5 start, I don't know if I'll give it to the Aussies, to be honest. If they do, I think it'll come really late, but I'd like to think that the English can sort of step up to the plate. They've been a little bit subpar in their last few internationals, and I'd love to see them get within 16 points, definitely. If they could get it to single figures, I think we're in for a really good start to the World Cup, and one that I think you'll drag a lot more viewers into if it is close. So for me, look, I'm going to take Australia by 10. Second game, the Kumuls and Wales over in PNG. The beauty here, you've got that perfect contrast of the PNG Hunters coming off the back of their maiden Intrust Super Cup premiership, where they were so hard to beat in Australia, weren't so successful in Australia, then win the grand final in Australia. So all the stars are starting to align for those guys. And then you've got the Welsh who, are very, very semi-professional. I couldn't tell you how many guys in that Welsh side are playing Super League over in England. I'm not too sure. I do know the halfback, Matty Seamark, who we'll get to eventually as we scroll down here. But yeah, just to stay focused on the PNG side, a wealth of NRL experience. You've got David Mead, who had a fairly strong season for the Brisbane Broncos. Not many people probably would have thought that he would get the chances that he would. We see there 12 appearances for the Broncos this year. A couple of other names that I'm familiar to, Justin Olam, who featured in the Queensland Cup. Nene McDonald, we all know. And then we've got a heap of PNG Hunters. So Gary Lowe, Assie Bowles, Watson Boas, Stanton Albert, even Luke Page has been around Q Cup circles for a number of years with the Burleigh Bears. Reece Martin and Rod Griffin had a really strong season for the Bulldogs intra Super Premiership. Paul Leighton, I believe he's been playing over in the UK. He's well and truly accustomed to things with a long and healthy stint with Cronulla Sharks at points in time. Kurt Baptiste, we know from the Raiders. James Seguiaro. And then, you've got Willie Minoga and Enoch Markey, who both played in the grand final as well. So, you've got lots of guys that are full of confidence, brimming with enthusiasm, and the fact that those PNG Hunter boys have tasted their success this year alone, mixed in with the fact that they now get the opportunity to play with numerous NRL stars. I think playing in front of a home crowd, good luck Wales. Good luck Wales. I think they're paying something like, it's pretty much $1. You can't really get any money out of Wales. But get any money out of the PNG, I beg your pardon. So we have a look down here. I'm not even really going to bother going through the Welsh lineup. I genuinely have no idea. Aside from, as I said earlier, Matt Seamark, who's had a stellar career for the Winner Seagulls. Know Matty relatively well from my time out there from 2013 to 2015. Celebrated his 10 years at Wynnum this year. He started at Redcliffe as a young fella, but that's about the best knowledge that I have for you out of this Welsh outfit, and I think that's basically says a lot about what's to be expected in this match. It's going to be really tough for them to go over to PNG and really come anywhere close. I honestly think it's probably a safe bet to take PNG at 20 plus. Alrighty, on to the next clash. Samoa and New Zealand. This should be a really interesting game. To be perfectly honest, I think more of the pressure is on New Zealand to perform here, just because Samoa and Tonga are bringing very competitive squads. It's great to see the transformation across the 4-year gap between the last World Cup and the improvements in experience across these two squads in Samoa and Tonga. So we see here, for the Samoans, young Tona Mapea, who's played 6 games for Melbourne Storm this year. He's been in and out of that's club's first grade side for the last few years. Peter Mataudia, Tim Laffey, Joey Leilua, Ken Mamalo, Joseph Paulo, Ben Roberts, Junior Paulo, Jazz Taviga, Sam Lasone, Josh Papali, Frank Pitchard, and Lisa Namau. That starting 13 have all played first grade. Peter Godinez has played first grade, I believe. I think he hasn't played any this year, but I think he has got a few caps under his belt. Herman Assesi we know has. So yeah, so 1 to 17. It's great to see NRL experience. Everyone in the squad has played first grade. Great to see. I think Moo Brown, there named at 21, is extremely unlucky to miss out on a half spot. I mean, I know Joseph Paulo and Ben Roberts, bring a heap of experience, and I guess to a degree that's sort of what you want when you're coming up against another first-tier nation in New Zealand. But I think if at some point you've got to put faith in someone to take you forward, you can guarantee that these two boys in Paulo and Roberts aren't going to be around for the next World Cup. So why not invest in someone, Moo Brown, who's making the move to the Bulldogs, and you'd suspect will play plenty of first grade for them next year under new coach Dean Pay. I really hope we do get to see him chuck and even ahead of Jazz Tavega. Played 4 games for the Warriors. It really surprised me, unless he's under some sort of injury cloud or niggle, but you wouldn't think you'd really carry him in a squad if that was the case. So another bloke I thought was a little bit unlucky to miss out was Zane Musgrove. I thought he had a really good year for the Rabbitohs this year, as did Ricky Latelli, but I guess when you're looking at the outside backs centres in particular, in Tim Laffey and Joe Leilua, they had pretty strong seasons themselves. But I guess Laffey had a strong start of the season. I don't know about the back end. He made some absolute blunders that sort of led to the demise in that Bulldogs game with the Dragons that ended their season. So I know you could argue that Ricky Latelli did deserve his spot. Forwarding down to this New Zealand outfit, 1 to 17 looks like this. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, Sheck, I beg your pardon. Martin Zalesniak, Jared Beale, Brad Takarangi on debut, Jordan Rapana, Cody Nikarima, Sean Johnson, Marty Tapau, Thomas Lulawai, Adam Blair, Kenny Bromwich, Joe Tarpanay, Simon Mannering, Nelson Asafa Solomona, Russell Packer, Isaac Liu, and Danny Levi rounds out the 17, and Jared Warrior-Hargraves is 18th man. If Jared Warrior-Hargraves can't make the starting 17, I'm not fucking here. If he didn't have a better year than Marty Tapau and Adam Blair, I must have been watching a different game. I know Marty Tapau ran for 200 plus metres on multiple occasions, and I guess they've put leadership faith in Adam Blair, who's a seasoned veteran. But fuck me, at some point, again echoing back to that representative stage, you've got to pick guys on form. How do you expect anyone to show? Like it's any wonder there's no loyalty at this international level. This bloke's worked tooth and nail. Played in every single game for the Roosters, just about. You could even argue the fact of Russell Packer. I can understand tactics. Maybe you want some sort of impact, but if I'm picking a side, I wouldn't even mind Russell Packer and Warrior-Hargraves being my starting front row, and have Marty Tapau even at lock, and push Mannering into an edge and start Tarpanay off the bench. I think it's massive pressure starting Tarpanay. He was relatively unaccustomed at times to starting for the Raiders, and now he's starting in the first World Cup match. So, some seriously interesting combination choices. I can understand to a degree Cody Nikarima and Sean Johnson, but leaving Tamari Martin, who played in a grand final, over Thomas Lulawai. Again, I know you're probably making the same arguments as you are for Samoa. You're just looking for experience, someone who can help steady that ship, especially now Kieran Foran isn't playing. But look, for me, I think someone who could really turn the game is Brad Takarangi. We've seen at times, he's a very, very talented footballer, and give him some space, and I think he can really cause some trouble, especially in partnership with Jordan Rapana. That's a really, really lethal attacking edge. So let's hope that Sean Johnson and Cody Nikarima can give them the ball that they deserve. I'm not sure about Jared Beale at a representative level. I think he's a little bit past, to be perfectly honest. I would even argue that I'd have Peter Hiku ahead of him. So, look, yeah, there's some interesting decisions. I think the result will hinge on a number of selection changes. I'd be very surprised if you see 1 to 17 the same next week for both of these sides. For me, I think it's going to be a really, really tight match. I hope it is. I'm going to say the Kiwis by 4. Alrighty, Fiji versus USA. Again, another game where you probably don't give the USA much of a chance. Very, very heavily based on semi-professional players. We go through this Fijian lineup that's riddled with NRL experience. Kevin Aguama, Suli Vunivalu, Tane Milne, Akili Uate, Marcelo Montoya, Jared Hayne at 6. Interesting. Henry Rai Walui, I hope I pronounced that right, at halfback. To be perfectly honest, I have no idea of his playing background, where he's played. We see in the front row Ashton Sims and Kane Evans, Api Coruscant at 9, Viliami Kikau, Corbin Sims, and Tui Kamikamika. So all but one of the starting 13 with NRL experience. Joe Lovadua, have no idea who you are, sorry, champion. Jacob Saifidi from Newcastle, and Vunikeki from the Roosters, and Benny Knack, my former Melbourne Storm under-20s front rower, gets his, I believe this will be Benny's 3rd cap for Fiji. So we've seen him feature for the Gold Coast Titans in a couple of appearances, managed to score a meat pie on debut, and I'm very, very much looking forward to seeing Benny rip in once again. So best of luck, champion. I hope you have a screamer, and I hope this time you don't get fucking knocked out like you did against the Roosters. Look, some interesting choices. Jared Hayne at 6 for 1. Whether that is the smartest choice, I guess they're looking for some direction, which a lot of these island nations are probably lacking a little bit. It's an area where they probably are lacking most, to be perfectly fair. So I can see why they would opt to put Jared Hayne at 6. But I think if you're looking at who the better fullback would be, Hayne or Nguama. I don't think. Argue all you want about his attitude at the moment and what he's achieved since coming back from America. Put the bloke on the spotlight, and he'll perform. He'll do it. He'll do the job, especially in this team. He's inevitably going to have to take on leadership unto its own. So I think up front, having Ashton Sims there, I think for this side, particularly Fiji, having a leader like Ashton Sims on the field is thoroughly important. You've Got Api Coruscant, who's played in grand finals. The dark horse for me, and I think someone who could really help push his case for more game time in the NRL next year, is Viliami Kikau. Started the year, got quite a few starts for Penrith at the start, but sort of they steered away from him. For whatever reason, I'm not too sure. He is a fucking massive human. He came through the Cowboys system and was picked up by Gus Gould. So anytime that Gus is out and identifying juniors to add to his system, they carry a lot of potential, and they have first grade written all over them. And I really hope, and this is the positive side of World Cups, seeing these second tier nations and island nations compete, it can really help establish future players' reputations, and it's one that I really hope to see. So I'd love to see Kikau, Tui Kamikamika, who got limited opportunities with the Storm this year, but played in the grand final for the Sunny Coast Falcons in this year's Intrust Super Cup grand final, and Benny Knack. So they're the three young fellas that I'm really looking to stand up. Undoubtedly, Jacob Saifidi will look to make a big stand after a great, genuine first season with the Newcastle Knights. Undoubtedly not the result as a club that you ever wish to achieve, but as an individual, I thought he really stood up. I'm really looking forward to seeing how Fiji perform. Obviously, ball control is going to be a massive one for them. We don't really have too much to go off this USA team. We can see there that the only sort of guys with any sort of NRL experience, Beretta Faramo, he started with Parramatta at the start of the year, and it's slipped my mind as to where he ended up. I think he might have ended up over at the Warriors, if my memory serves me correctly. Some inexperienced halves in Christian Freed, who I know personally. I've done a couple of podcasts with Freedy, and he played at my junior club just down the road from where I am now, down at Mitchelton actually. So best of luck, Christian. Tui Samoa. If it's the Tui Samoa that I'm thinking of, it's the former Redcliffe Dolphin. He's played a shit ton of Queensland Cup. Freedy's played a little bit of Queensland Cup for the Sunny Coast Falcons a few moons ago. Otherwise, Eddie Pettyborn is pretty much the only other bloke who's played NRL to the best of my knowledge. Otherwise, I think a lot of these guys I've sort of been picked out of America. I know Mark Offerdale, their captain, played for East, if my memory serves me correctly, in Brisbane here. So there's trickles of experience, but nowhere near to the degree and even professionalism and experience that has been accustomed to this Fiji side. And I think it's just those little touches of flair from the likes of your Nguamas and your Haynes, and just that experience up front in the Sims brothers and the like that are going to make the big difference here. So look, if the USA can stick with them for that first half, I think that'll be a massive result for them. But I think similar to the Cummels and Wales game, I think the Buddy are going to run away with this one. So I'd be looking at a 20-plus margin as well. On to Ireland and Italy. Look, again, make no secret, I don't know really anyone in this Irish outfit. I don't really know what to expect of them. The only guy that does ring any bells is Tyrone McCarthy, who had a little bit of time with St. George, I believe it was, in the NRL. And he also played a little bit for the Northern Pride up in Cairns. Other than that, I've got absolutely no idea. So it will be interesting in comparison to Italy, who we know. Look at that. You've got James Tedesco. Who else you got? The old Terry Campese, the throwback. It'll be very interesting to see how his gas tank is. Paul Vaughan coming off the back of a massive year for St George. He won't let the team down. Ryan Getty plays for the Northern Pride in the Intrust Super Cup. Been around forever and a day. Is a very classy 9, and I think he'll be a massive plus for this Italian side. Daniel Alvaro, stellar year for Parramatta. Joel Reithmuller, a North Queensland cowboy. Mark Minicello, wealth of knowledge, wealth of experience, and Nathan Brown, was arguably the buy of the season for Parramatta this year. Just kept finding another level. Brendan Santee, name rings a bell. If my memory serves me correctly, he's a Townsville Blackhawk. I didn't do my research before this, but that's sort of where. Feel free to correct me on any of this if you're listening. So yeah, just based off that alone, I think when you got guys that sort of know what they're doing, Cam Peasy playing at the level of the Irish, he's got to know how to steer a ship around. Combine that with Ryan Getty. Basically, you're just trying to get James Tedesco the ball. I think he'll play into the line a fair bit, so look for him to have a shit ton of carries, and they'll definitely be looking to get him into some open space. I think where they'll do most of the damage will definitely be up front. Paul Vaughan, Daniel Alvaro, Reithmuller, Minicello, Nathan Brown. Like they're guys who know how to get a team on the front foot, and I think they'll do so quite comfortably. So, I think this will be a really good start to the Italian campaign, and one that they'll be relishing. So, I can't see why Italy won't win 13 plus. So 13 plus Italy for mine. Well, it's an interesting one. Lebanon and France. I'm not sure to what degree this French side has played. Again, there's only one name that rings a bell for me from this French side, so I'm not too sure how many are playing in the English Super League, how many are playing second tier to that. All I do know is some of the guys that are playing for Lebanon. So you got Travis Robinson, Mitchell Moses, and Robbie Farah is obviously the big plus in the halves. Interesting to see Farah in a 7 jersey. Tim Manor, Michael Leisha, Alex Twal, who came on for the West Tigers after being nabbed out of the Parramatta junior system. So, there's a little bit of NRL experience there for the Lebanese side, and that'll definitely put them in good stead. That obviously is a massive plus for any of these second tier teams. The more NRL experience that you can obtain, it just builds confidence for those genuine second tier guys that are in that same side. It just fills them with confidence to, I guess, know that they are up to the standard and they're going to learn along the way. And I guess that's where you do take on that tournament mentality of improvement is working as one. So, I think that'll be the biggest plus for the Lebanese side. Again, I've got no idea about any of these French players, so I'm not really even going to make much of an attempt, but I'm pretty sure Lebanon are outsiders. When I checked earlier in the week, they were $2 outsiders, so that tells me that there must be a little bit of experience in this French side at a decent enough level. But again, the only name that I do recognise is Ben Garcia, and that was simply from his time at Winner Manly. He played in our Colts side and ended up having a season or two at Penrith in the lower grades too, I'm led to believe. So, yeah, that's about all I've got for you on that. Again, I didn't do a great deal of research. I just wanted to put something out here for Footy Rants, and like I said, we can have fun once everyone's sort of got a game under their belt and I got a bit more of an opportunity to make comment on each individual. But for me, if that is the case, that Lebanon are outsiders, look, I'd be getting on board. The fact that they've got a decent 6, 7, and 9 in Moses, Farah, and Leisha, game on. Let's go. So yeah, I'll take Lebanon. And the final game, Scotland versus Tonga. All the expectation is on Tonga. We've seen now that Tamalolo and Andrew Fafita have aborted their opportunities for New Zealand and Australia respectively. They're going to have to come out and perform. From this Scottish outfit, again, don't really know anyone outside of Danny Brough, who we know is a fierce competitor and has been around forever and a day. Luke Douglas, I'm assuming that's Luke Douglas, who's played for Cronulla. Outside of that, I don't really have anything for you. So I'll shoot down to this Tongan outfit, which is it's fucking awesome. But again, I want to make comment on certain players that are in the side that I have to question why they're in there. So 1 to 17 sounds like this: Will Hopewade, fullback; Daniel Tupou, Michael Jennings, Conrad Hurrell, Manu Vardavai, Tui Lolohea, Adahingano, Andrew Fafita, Havili, Takeaho, Manu Mau, Sikamanu, Jason Tamalolo, and the bench is Katoa, Sam Moa, Penny Terapo, and Ben Murdoch-Masila. And then in the squad, you had Joe Offengawi, Solomon Akata, David Fusatua, and Samasoni Lungi. So, look, the fact that outside of the 17, you've got Joe Offengawi, and for mine, David Fusatua, who I thought was one of the best wingers in a disappointing Warriors campaign. I thought he was one of the best wingers in the game this season. How David... Look, I get Manu Vardavai is a big body. He's a legend. I guess you want to sort of buy into the story a little bit and send him off now that he's not playing in the NRL anymore. But again, it's a rep team. You're here to win fucking games. And whether, they're like, well, we feel confident enough that we're going to knock Scotland off. This is his last hurrah. And then David Fusatua will get a look in. But again, like you've got some older players in there like Sikamanu and Ben Murdoch-Masila. Again, Joe Offengawi, like he was one game away from a grand final. And he played in 2015 as well. So, look, he's supremely unlucky as well, where I think the Tongan side will just dominate Scotland is that forward pack. Fafita, Takeaho, Manimo, and Jason Tamalolo. I think they'll rip them to shreds. I'm really keen to see Katoa come off the bench. He was super exciting to watch from a fan's perspective for Penrith, and I said it week in, week out that outside of the Cowboys, Penrith was the team that I wanted to watch week in, week out. I really hope that they do build towards something in the coming season around. I thought they had a really good mix of young and old, and it was just good to see a young kid come on and have a crack, and he's super aggressive, and I really hope to see that from the Tongan forward pack, and the fact that they do have those electric outside backs that can come in and be quite potent to finish off the job, and I hope they do it ruthlessly. So again, it's another game that I expect Tonga to win by 20 points. So there's a couple of opportunities here for some of these second-tier island nations to really put some hurt on some of these other sides. So PNG, Fiji, and Tonga, they really need to capitalise on these opportunities to play some of these more inexperienced nations and get their World Cup campaign off to an absolute flyer. So that's all I've got for you for today. Thank you for tuning in. It's great to be back. Sorry if I was a little bit blotchy to start with, but I felt like I sort of started to hit a bit of a rhythm once we got stuck into things, and I look forward to watching all the Rugby League, as I hope you are too. And we'll be back at the start of next week and we'll recap everything. So looking forward to the next month or so to tide us over before we have to wait until 2018 for the next bout of Rugby League. Alrighty guys, I'm Benny Matthews. This has been Footy Rants, and I'll see you next week. Catch ya.